Hi, it's Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to review the Dufume 600 amp hour battery. This is the cheapest battery I've ever reviewed, and I'm going to give you a spoiler. Don't buy it. Watch the video. We're going to learn a lot about how a battery can be a bad battery and not worth the money. Okay, let's start out with the specifications. This is a 600 amp hour battery. That's a lot of battery. It's heavy, it's 111 pounds. I find that awkward to move around. I mean, I could feel it on my back. Getting it up on the table, I had to reinforce my table. You know, if it's what fits in your application, it's what fits, but I think 300s are probably better in lots of ways. Let's go through its dimensions. I've got the weight already, of course. Let's see, what do we have here? A little over 9.5 inches to its widest spot. I never measure the poles, but it looks like just under 9 inches tall. And in the big dimension, we've got 23.5 inches, not counting the handles. The handles matter. The handle brackets bring it out to 25 inches. Okay, what's inside? There's a BMS, of course, always have a BMS. I was pretty encouraged by it at first. Has low temperature protection. Hey, cool, you know, for a battery this cheap. Oh, by the way, the price on Amazon right now, it's $709.99. So $710 for 600 amp hours. That would be cool. It has a 200 amp BMS. That means that it can't put out more than 200 amps at a time. You know, if you ask for 210 amp load, like a big inverter, it's going to puke and the BMS is going to shut down and overheat. Along those lines, they say don't charge it over 100 amps. They say 50 to 100 amps. Now the cell should be able to take 300 amps, so that's a BMS limitation. They make all kinds of claims about the cycle numbers. I found in their literature 1,500 cycles, 1,000 cycles, and 4,000 cycles. Those are just standard numbers. A good lithium iron phosphate is probably more or less 4,000 cycles. There is some differentiation, and this is a new thing now. I've gotten myself associated with a high-end battery company who has access to the cell database from China. Like, every cell is tracked. And you've got to have actually pay for access to this database. So we're going to be looking at the actual insignias on the cells, and all my videos from now on are, and we're going to see what they can tell us about them. So it'll be in this video. It doesn't have Bluetooth. Now, technically you don't need Bluetooth. It doesn't help the battery in any way, but it helps you know when it's balanced. It helps you know if it's actively getting into balance. It just makes your life easier. Honestly, it's probably something I would use during the balance and then just never look at again, or to check now and again to see what the cell balance is. Well, it doesn't have it. I've been telling people how to balance batteries even without Bluetooth, but have I actually done that? Yeah, theoretically, but I decided I wanted to do it case closed and see how it works. Didn't work so well. And I started the balancing process, and the balance improved, but ever so slowly. So I contacted them, and they were nice enough to get a technical person in contact with me, and he gave me the numbers. They claim that the BMS, when it sees any cell above 3.525 volts, it's going to apply the balancing load, which brings the capacity of that cell down. So the idea is, if you have a bunch of cells and they're all like at different charge levels, the top ones will come down and meet the others. It's all down to the rate that they do that discharge at. And it's even more down to the ratio of that rate to the size of the actual cells. This has 4 600 amp hour cells or groups of cells in series. So there are 600 amp hours that have to be controlled. The number is 35 milliamps. 35 milliamps I don't think it's enough for a 100 amp hour battery, much less a 600 amp hour battery. Did a little bit of math here, and let's say the cells are 1%, only 1% out of balance with each other. And that's likely not the number. And let's also assume that that 35 milliamps actually gets drawn out of the batteries. And it very likely won't, because there's other resistances in the system, and they tend to balance and then shut off and look at the voltage and balance again. So you really don't get the rating. But let's assume we get the full rating. 1% off, that comes down to be 6 amp hours off. Like cell number 1 might be 6 amp hours higher than cell number 3, for example. If I did the math right, that's 171.5 hours, or 7 days, more than 7 days to bring it into balance. All the time you're up at that higher voltage that you need to be to get it to balance, you're actually damaging the cells, you're cooking them, you're shortening the life of the whole battery. That's a long time, and that's only if you're off by 1%, and only if you get all of the balancing that it could possibly do. None of that is true. So this could be a long time. I let this thing balance for a week, and I only got to the point where I could get the outside voltage at the poles up to 14.355 volts before the BMS shut down because one of the cells went too high. So that's uncool. It's further uncool because at 35 milliamps, I'm not even certain you could keep the thing in balance. Now, I went through the Amazon comments. I read them a lot. A lot of them are written by people that don't understand the product, and you've got to kind of, go through it and say, oh yeah, that's not the product's fault. That's because you just don't know how to install it. But one guy that gave it 1 star, the lowest rating, said it worked great for about a year and then it didn't work, and he describes in detail why it didn't work. Now, he doesn't seem to know why it didn't work, but from my outside view and not having the battery in front of me, I think that battery progressively got farther and farther and farther out of balance to cause the symptoms he was seeing. Anyway, not cool. Now, I guess it's time that I crack the case open and see what's going on inside this guy. Okay, I got it out. Big chore, big heavy battery, but it's out. Learned a bunch. Learned an awful lot. Been 2 days, actually. Looked up a lot of information. Let's start out with what the battery cell's voltages actually were. Couldn't get it out of the Bluetooth, but I can get it right off with my meter. When the top cell hit 3.65 volts, the bottom cell was at 3.558. So there was still a big difference. I then played with it a bit more. I put this device, which can eat up amps, and I put it on the high cell and drew power out. And when I got 0.58 amp hours out of it, they got a lot closer, Then they got to the point where the top cell was 3.65 and the bottom cell was 3.6. I could get the voltage now right up there to 14.55, I think it was. And, that would be balanced as far as I'm concerned. But that took another half an amp hour. And at 30-ish milliamps, that's like 20 more hours. It had already been cooking for a solid week. And I'm not really convinced that it was pulling 30 out. I would say it'd probably be more like 40 or 50 hours. So I'm very unhappy with the balancing of this battery. Let's look at the cells. Pop some of these out of the way. We have 8 cells, so it's 2 in parallel 4 times, and those are in series. Let's get a nice close look. Here's one of the little QR codes, and I looked the QR code up. 2 different sources, something called Dufume and something called Global QR decoders. Neither could find. They came back no manufacturer, no size. That tells us it's one of two things. These are either cells that are B cells. They didn't meet the requirements of the manufacturer, and the manufacturer is able to put a code on it, but only for their own inventory control. They can't be put into the system. And the other thing it could be is that they were actually reused cells, but I don't think that's the case. Took a straight edge to them, and there's no warping. They haven't been, as a cell gets used, it kind of expands a little bit. That's usually why you try to squeeze it, you know? So I don't think they are. Also, they're labeled plainly 314 amp hours, which would be 628. And you always get like 10% more on the first few cycles, but I wasn't getting the right number for 314. I was getting the right number for 300. And the fact that the company derated them a bit tells me, yeah, these are not A cells. These are rejects in some way. I've been kind of thinking that doesn't matter so much, but boy, the more I look into it, it looks like it matters. So I'm going to be digging a little deeper and give you this report now that I have this information available to me. There's a lot of B cells available. 350 billion cells were made in 2025. If you assume 5%, didn't cut the mustard, that's 18 billion grade B cells. They go somewhere. I think we found out where some of them went. Other than that, it's your normal setup, nice big buses on it, welded on. It's kind of standard now. This is me after editing. I've discovered something else. I was putting the battery back together, hooking up these positive terminals, and the stud is just pressed or threaded into this little thin plate. This is ridiculous. There's no head on it. And I tighten it down reasonably and bang, destroyed. It doesn't have the really nice, strong metal compression, but it does have a metal plate at each end and fiberglass strapping. You've got to decide on the crapshoot of whether you think those cells are worth it or not. I'm not going to give it great marks. Let me now compare it to the other batteries I've reviewed. Let's see, capacity. Well, got to give it a good because they only claimed it was a 600 and it put out more than 600. So there's that. I don't know how long it's going to keep up, but it's not excellent, but it's good. Cells, definitely a poor. I mean, they're reject cells that didn't meet specification. Build quality, definitely a poor. I do the BMS analysis in with build quality now, and it just can't balance itself. What good is it? You kind of have to open it up and manually balance it, or at the very least open it up and put a like an active balancing chip on it. Let me grab one, show you what they are. These things exist. I really don't think you want to open up a battery, but these little things, they're not very expensive, and you would hook it to all the cells, and this would actually balance it like 1 amp. I've used them before. They work pretty good. But again, I don't think it's worth it. You just have B cells here. Let's see, next thing, the case. Well, case is excellent. It's a plastic case. It was locked together real well. I managed to get it apart without destroying it, so I'll be able to put it back together, but it was sealed. And really, for marine environments and for every environment, I think the plastic case is the superior way to go. I mean, it's waterproof. It's not going to corrode. Well done there. Oh, wires, I probably should mention, they have 4 7-gauge wires going everywhere. I've taken the hot wires to the terminals and the negative wires to the terminals off just for safety. This thing is really heavy, and getting it up on the desk was a chore. I didn't want bits that were charged. Remember, it has 600 amp hours behind it. This thing makes me a little afraid to be open on the desk. You notice no watches. Okay, the company. I was going to give them a pour because they used B cells. But I went back through their ads, and in no place in any of their ads do they say they're using A-rated cells. So they're not lying to us. So let me just say good, because at least they didn't lie. They did choose a BMS that doesn't do the job, but Yeah, I'll just give them a good, because this battery is not going to get my recommendation, so it doesn't really matter. And then cost to value, totally up to you, right? For me, it's not. It's going to get low. I'll say poor. It won't balance. What good is it if it won't balance, in a very long time? You don't want to open the case, so kind of makes it not terribly useful. Back to that thing I said about the guy that did the comment that in a year it died. That could have died because of balance, like I thought initially. But now that I know they're B cells, could have just been the cells gave up. It's about it. Oh, one more thing, just thinking about it, because, this has doubles. It has the two cells in parallel and then in series. That's how you get 600 amp hours, but this battery will function until the first cell dies. Well, there's 8 cells, so it's more likely to die. And these are in parallel, and you could say, well, when one dies, the other one will be there, so I'll still have 300 amp hours. Yeah, that's if you're really lucky and this one dies open, but they usually die with some resistance or closed, and then this cell would take this one down, and then the whole battery's dead. So, it's an odds thing, and the more components that are lined up to go wrong, this doubles the chance of something failing. And since they're using the reject cells, we're doubling a larger than average number. That's it. Tell me if you think I really should go into the cell history. I have that source available to me now, but I'll tell you, getting it completely out of the case is like another hour's work on my part. So if you say, hey, this is important information to me, I want to know it, I'll do it, but I want to know you want it. Bye from Clark on Temptress.